Hey everybody, Ryan McCaffrey with IGN here. I am joined by Insomniac Games expert, Colin Moriarty.
Beyond.
Colin,
yes.
Insomniac, a studio that you've been, a AAA studio that you've been covering for many years, because they've been in the Sony family. They've been making games with Sony for so long, Resistance, Ratchet and Clank, etc. They have jumped ship. They're now sleeping with the best friend. Over with Microsoft. We've got a new game, Sunset Overdrive. We saw it last year at E3, and then dark. Nothing. But until now, you got to go down there and play it. We've got a big preview up on IGN. But I want to just ask you, just figure we just have a chat about, what do you think of this game? What's it like? What do you think its potential is? What do you think it's? What concerns you about it? Just want to take your temperature on this game.
Yeah, so I mean, it's an Insomniac game. I mean,
but explain what that means to Xbox fans.
Okay, yeah,
they don't know. I mean, all they know is Fuse, which is best not mentioned.
No. So Insomniac's really, it's whimsical, right? Like they make games that are funny and don't take themselves seriously. And that was what was so strange about Resistance, even though that was a great series, was that that game did take itself seriously. But to me, Sunset Overdrive is almost a logical extension of what they started with Ratchet and Clank, which was, silly weapons, silly characters, silly premise, silly bad guys, and so the entire premise of the game is the end of the world. But what if the end of the world was awesome? And they call it the Awesome Apocalypse. So instead of like worrying about eating and surviving and where your rations are and where your ammo is, it's more about like, you just do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want now. There are no rules. And
so it's like the opposite of State of Decay.
Yes, exactly. So it's an it's an open world sandbox third person action game, but it's really a shooter. And this is again very much like Ratchet and Clank, where you can melee like Ratchet can with his Ratchet, but really it's all about the guns that Ratchet has, and it's very much like the nameless protagonist's arsenal in this game. So there's a lot of lines from the lineage of Insomniac right through to Sunset.
And that's a good thing.
Yes, absolutely.
What stands out most to you, having been down to the studio, played the game for a while?
Yeah, so I played the game for about an hour, and first of all, I want to give props to Insomniac because, I've known those guys for a long time. They're really friendly, and they're also really open. That's what I always loved about them. That they're like an open book when you talk to them. And what was cool was they sat us down. They were like, "Here's the game, and within this few block radius, everything's turned on. The enemies are there. There's side quests. There's quests to do, but you can run around and do whatever you want into parts of the game that aren't even drawn yet. So there's just there's just geometry.
Like white box.
Exactly. There's parts of the city that are just geometry that have no art, nothing going on. And so I ran around there. I ran around in the parts of the game that were obviously finished, or that vertical slice that they've been working on. And what stood out to me the most was that it was fluid and fun, and there's a lot of influences from various games in this game. I see shades of Tony Hawk, and I see shades of Infamous, and I see shades of Prince of Persia, and I know you see a lot of, and I agree, Jet Set Radio and other things like that. So there's a lot of good stuff mixed up in here, but open worlds are kind of the zeitgeist of the time right now, right? Like everyone loves open worlds, and this is an open world that I think you're going to be familiar with, and you can run around and do a lot of cool stuff.
So it's due out in the fall. There's some sort of multiplayer that they're not talking about yet. What is there anything about it that worries you heading into the now that you've seen it, played it? Is there anything that you're like, well, let's see how that pans out?
Yeah, I think in my preview I write a couple of things that I think concern me. One is that there's you're jumping around basically in this world. It's not like Infamous with the parkour, and it's really not like Grand Theft Auto with cars or anything like that. Really, you have to keep moving. And the developers at Insomniac call it velocity. And if you're standing still, you're gonna die, basically. So you can't even run or take cover, and that's to encourage you to use your various grinding and jumping and bouncing and all these wall running abilities and all this kind of stuff. But what I noticed is that there's a bit of everything's a little too magnetic. Like if you're jumping towards a wire, you probably shouldn't make it, but the game makes you make it so that it keeps the speed going, and it looks a little weird. I understand why they did it, because they don't want to break up the action, but it looks a little strange, and I hope they kind of fix that as well. And when you're grinding around and doing all this stuff and fighting, it seems a little slow. I think we're used to, or at least I'm used to more of the Infamous style, like very fast kind of thing. The game seems a little slow and more deliberate, which is why I compare it to Tony Hawk, which is more about like doing tricks and really focusing on these things as opposed to getting from point A to point B. So I hope they kind of ramp the speed up a little bit, but also again I understand why they did it, because you need to aim at enemies and fire and shoot your guns and stuff, and you can't do that while you're zooming around. So these are design choices they had to make, but I think it might hold the game back a little bit. But overall, I'm really impressed with the final product. Can't wait to play the final product.
Yeah, it's definitely unlike anything else on Xbox One so far. It's got, I love the color palette. I mean, it actually uses all the colors in the color palette instead of just brown or gray, or, you know, Titanfall's very silver and mechanical as well. So as great a game as it is.
Yeah, it's very, and you know, for the Xbox fans out there that aren't familiar with Insomniac and their various teams and their structure, everyone works on everything, but basically these are the guys that did Resistance, and so this is a really huge change of pace for them in terms of color palette too, because those games are very brown and gray and black, and it's post-apocalyptic, but actually post-apocalyptic as opposed to humorously post-apocalyptic. So this is a huge change of pace for them too, but I'd also consider this their best team. So, you know, the Ratchet guys are very good too. A lot of them are over in North Carolina in their satellite studio. So I think you're getting the best of Insomniac with Sunset Overdrive. They're really authentically excited about this game, and I am too.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, for more on Sunset Overdrive, you know where to be, right here at IGN.